What's up, friends? We have a very special episode of Peace, Love, and Baseball for you today, and it is featuring an interview with the film director Jeff Celentano and baseball legend Rickey Hill. They are promoting their new film, The Hill. Yeah, if you've been to the theater lately, then you might already know what I'm talking about because this is a major motion picture. The film stars Dennis Quaid, Joelle Carter, and Colin Ford, and it is coming out in theaters nationwide on August 25th. This was such a thrill for me to meet and talk with Jeff and Rickey, and I couldn't believe that I hadn't heard Rickey's story until now. So you're going to get a little snippet of it, a little insight in with our conversation today, just enough to give you a taste and make you want to get to the theater and hear the whole thing from start to finish. But this is the kind of film that you're going to want to take your family to the theater to see. It is the kind of film that you are going to watch for years to come. And it's the kind of storytelling that transcends our differences and truly highlights humanity. And that's what I love so much about it. I wanted to do a quick word before the interview because there are a couple things worth noting. First, you're going to hear Jeff and Rickey speak a little bit about how they have been working to get this movie made for over 15 years. And I just wanted to mention that because I think it's an important part of the entertainment industry that is so easily overlooked or not really fully understood. It's something that is really relevant in the negotiations, or I guess lack thereof, happening in SAG-AFTRA right now. And I know it's hard to keep up with that. We're not going to dig into that today. I certainly can't speak on it. There is a separate union for stage actors, which you may or may not know is my thing. But anyway, it's really just one of those things to know that it is very different from any other industry. And you will hear Jeff speak on that as well. And for how long and how hard so many people have worked to make this film a reality, to want to tell this meaningful story and share it. Now I'm realizing that the way that they plan to promote this has changed completely because, the actors that would be doing a lot of the press are on strike. All the late night shows are not happening right now. So my point in mentioning it to you is that I hope that you'll listen to this interview. I hope that you will see the film and help spread the word, because that is how it's going to get seen. And that's how it's going to make the impact that these people hope that it will. The people who worked on it and put years and years of their lives into it because they have a message and a meaningful message to share. And it's not every day that kind of film comes along where the passion behind it really shines through. But I had the privilege to see the film before this interview, and it really is something special. So I know after listening to Jeff and Rickey today that you will have no doubt of why the movie itself is so magical and heartfelt. And the other thing that I wanted to mention to you is that you'll hear Rickey talk a lot about his faith today. And that is, of course, because it is part of the storyline in the movie. He was raised by a preacher in rural Texas in the 60s and 70s, and that has always been a huge part of his life. But what I think is really special about the way that the story is told is that it is truly for everyone. And again, you'll hear Jeff speak to this a little bit, but in spirituality being like such a very personal thing, the way that it is part of this story and the way that you're going to hear Rickey talk about it today, about his spirituality and his higher power, is in a very inclusive and loving way. And I feel that that's worth mentioning because that's a really big part of the movie's message, is in learning to see people for who they are and how everyone's expression, everyone's gifts, everyone's, passion and purpose is really their own. And there is not, one way to be spiritual or to be religious or to live your truth. And so I mention that because here at Peace, Love, and Baseball, inclusivity is a really important part of our message. So whether you go to church or you don't go to church, whether you identify as Christian or Jewish or Muslim or Buddhist, or if you have no idea or you have no desire to put a label on it, this podcast is for you and this movie is for you too. So with no further ado, Let's meet Rickey and Jeff and hear all about this wonderful film that they are putting out for us, The Hill. So today I am excited to share with you some very unique insight to the upcoming feature film called The Hill. It is starring Dennis Quaid, Joelle Carter, and Colin Ford. The movie is based on the true story of baseball legend Rickey Hill and how he ultimately overcame the adversity of growing up in poverty with a degenerative spinal disease to play professional baseball, and how his legacy of perseverance and determination lives on. So with us today to discuss it is none other than the Rickey Hill himself and director of the film, Jeff Celentano. Fellas, thank you so much for joining me today. Rickey, how are you this morning?
I'm wonderful. Thank you.
We're happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to give our listeners some insight into this wonderful story that's coming out. And I think it's a great reason to be excited to get back into the theater. So, Rickey, let me start by asking you what it's like to have this incredible story that you have lived produced as a feature film that will live on forever. How did you feel when you saw the film?
Oh, when I saw the film, it was totally amazing because from start to finish of this film, it was just totally amazing when I watched it. Of course, naturally, it brings back memories that I had to hold my head down low so nobody could see me crying. But it came out so beautiful that because my life wasn't beautiful, but I know why God made it that way, and why he ended my career early, because it's because of this film right here.
Yeah, that's amazing. It is a message that is so much bigger than just, one moment in time or that part of your life. And Jeff, you have had quite the career as an actor, writer, and director, but is this your first time directing a project that is based on a true story?
It is. It's the first time, yeah.
So what's it been like to work directly with Rickey to tell that story?
It's been amazing. I mean, we met like 17 years ago or more, I think. And I was just saying earlier today, it was important for me to befriend Rickey and really get to know him. And he had so many different people that wanted to change his story or alter the faith element or whatever. And I didn't want to do any of that. I love the movie. It touched me in a way that I could never get it out of my system. That's why I hung on to it for all these years. Nobody could believe it. People told me, walk away. This is, get a life, get another job, do something. I said, I can't give up on this movie. It's going to get made. It's just, if you don't give up, you'd be surprised what happens if you really believe in something. That's it. Rickey and I are exactly alike in that way. It's funny you mentioned about my career. I came to California as a surfer. I came from Florida. I went to college, and then I decided I wanted to live in paradise. So I moved to California just to surf. And an angel came into my life and said, you're a lot more than this, and you could be somebody, and you could be something in your life. And I was always interested in the entertainment business, and he just took me under his wing. He was a very big manager at the time named Eric Gold, who managed, nobody even knows this story, by the way. I've never told it. Eric Gold managed Jim Carrey for years, probably still does. And he sent me to an acting class, and I didn't have any connection to anybody in Hollywood. And I still today don't. I mean, I did everything on my own. And I had this belief in myself that if you really believe in something and you really, really are passionate about it, and you never give up, and you just smile through it all, it'll happen for you. You just have to have a really good attitude. I mean, I'm always up and always positive. I mean, have I ever been down a little bit? Yeah, of course, like we all have. But I'm more positive than anybody I know, as far as, like, I always tell people, it's all going to work out. You're breathing every day. You have a car. You have money. You have a life. You're getting along. You don't have much money, but you're alive. I mean, a lot of other people are a lot worse off. So Rickey had that drive where he still has it today. He's never going to quit. And I always tell actors when they come to me, young actors, they say, well, should I be an actor? Should I continue and have a career? And I was an acting coach for a while. And I say to them, it is the hardest business in the world. But if you really believe this is what you want to do, and you're passionate about the work and not just the fame and the money, It will happen for you. There are no rules. This is the only business where there's no rules. I mean, look at Sound of Freedom. Boom. Nobody knew. 5 years ago, it sat on a shelf for 5 years. And finally, somebody picked it up and got it out to the world. And it's not only doing well, it's making a change in the world. You know?
Well,
and I hope
Amen.
I hope this movie does the same thing. I hope that little kids see this movie and families and go, I really believe in my kid. He can do anything. And my kid that wants to play baseball that's not that good, well, if he keeps working at it, he really loves it and lives and breathes it. He'll have to work harder than the other guys who will come in with the talent, but he'll still get his dream to be fulfilled,
Yeah, if you feel strongly about something, there's a reason for it. And
Yeah.
it's okay to keep following that feeling. Well, no wonder you two connected then and have ended up here working on this together. I did read a fun part of your story is that you actually met Rickey through your brother. Is that right?
Yeah. My brother, Mark Celentano. Mark met Rickey in a hotel lobby and overheard a phone call that he had with somebody about looking for a director. And he really needed to find the right guy. He was really discouraged because he hadn't met anybody that really he felt was right. And my brother said, you have to meet my brother. He's got a big heart. He's so right for this movie. And Rickey's like, yeah, it's okay. You're selling me. Okay, whatever. And I read the script that night. And that was the last time I ever looked back. I mean, I never looked back after that. I read the script and I cried my eyes out. And I said, Mark, I got to meet this guy. And so the next day I met Rickey in a hotel lobby. And I was on it from that day. And I never, ever let it out of my sight. I had to fly to Dallas and meet other partners of his and convince them and jump through some fiery hoops. But I'm a person that doesn't believe in talking about stuff. I believe in doing it. So I brought all these materials, different movies. I was showing them the look I was going to go for and the music. And I played some of the theme of the music from another film and Rickey cried. And I said, I'm going to get this guy to score our movie. And I did. I got the exact same guy that I would play on set his music while the scene was going on and people would cry. They say, oh my God, that just touched my heart. And then I stayed with it. And then my producing partner, Warren Ostergaard, he and I, we met back in Oklahoma when the movie was originally shooting in Oklahoma. And that was like 5 years ago. And Warren was also he was just like Rickey and I found that Warren used to almost play professional baseball. His son is going to go on to play professional baseball. So Rickey met Warren and said, let me see your swing. And when Warren swung the bat, he said, man, you two are like peas in a pod. This guy's the perfect producer and you're the perfect director.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, obviously, to make this happen. And that makes sense in the passion that is behind this film that you've created. Rickey, do you remember like meeting Jeff and how it just kind of all clicked and made sense that it was different than the people that you had worked with so far?
Yeah, I can remember it like it was 5 minutes ago. When we had to regroup with this film, like a lot of films do. When you see things that are going south and we had to regroup. I say we, wasn't me, because I didn't have the money to do this film. But my executive producer did. And he asked me to go out to Hollywood and find us a director, a real director. And so I interviewed between 40 and 50 directors.
Wow.
I did. And I wanted to see them for myself, how they acted to me, not just because I can see a guy when he's fake.
Yeah.
And I didn't want anyone who's fake. I also wanted a Christian man that believed the same way I believe, okay, that had the faith that I have. The faith even of a mustard seed can move mountains, right? Okay. So I wanted something like that. And the odds of the way that we connected, I was in the Westin Hotel in Los Angeles, and I was interviewing for that whole week, and I interviewed like, I think 40 to 50 guys, and around the 44th guy, this guy comes out of nowhere and says, look, I know who's the right one for your story. And I didn't even know what he was talking about because I didn't know he was overhearing me. And And then come to find out, I get another phone call that Jeff doesn't realize. But one of my favorite movies in my lifetime is The Abyss. I love the movie The Abyss. Well, the man who made The Abyss called me on the phone and verified about Jeff Celentano. Now, that's just happened to be one of my favorite movies. That kind of helped a little bit too, right there in itself. And then finally, last of the decisions that we had to make, because, I mean, this is my story. And in fact, that's a song I used to sing in church. This is my story. But this is my story. But yet, when Jeff showed up at the strutting, the way that he was strutting with his wife and with his brother, and we were going to meet for breakfast that morning. And I saw him, and I'm watching, because I watch every move that people make, and I see him. And then when he sat down, he said the magical words to me. Because I knew that he had just combed through this script heavily, because I did walk up to my scout and I told him I'm the best hitter in this camp, and there's 700 players there. So that's a big statement to make. Well, he walked up to me, Jeff did, and said, I'm the best hitter for this movie that you're ever going to find. And then he showed me. He took me to his house, showed me what he was going to do, the only man that did this. And he showed me everything that he was going to do for this film. And this guy had me crying over his little short clips. I mean, he really did. And I knew his heart was sold on this film in a matter of a day or so. In a matter of a day. I mean, it was totally.
And who knew 17 years ago that we'd actually get this movie made?
Yeah, who did know? I tell you who knows.
And it was made the way it always should have made. We always knew. That's why I kept going. That's why I kept going, honestly, Kelsey. I kept going because I just knew that the people that we were working with were not the right people. Every time something would fail or not happen, I would say, it's okay. These weren't the right people.
Yeah.
And I never got discouraged, frustrated at times. Yeah. Because it was such a beautiful film and no one was making it. And there were all these movies I was watching that were horrible and they didn't make me feel good. And matter of fact, I used to be a movie kid where I'd watch every movie. I'd watch all the bad ones and all the good ones. I just had to watch every movie. And it got to a point where all the violence and action and stuff that I used to love, I started turning away from. I just got sick of it. There's enough of that in the world today. So when I got this script, I was like, oh my gosh, this is one of the most beautiful lyrical stories I've ever read. It's just a magic movie. That was my key word in the movie every day. Magic. This is magic. Every family member can look at their kids that are 2 years old, 5 years old, 8 years old and go, we can go see this movie. We don't have to be scared about anything. It's a beautiful film. And you come out feeling like you went through an experience of total happiness. You just feel good. And that's what I wanted to portray. And now that I'm doing that on this film, all the films I'm doing now are reverberating that. I'm doing my next film is a very feel good, inspirational movie, true story.
Well, and we certainly need all of that we can get these days. And that's so cool to hear how something very much bigger than both of you and bigger than all of us brought you two together with this shared confidence and conviction in sharing this story. So I want to talk to you about a couple of the different, there's lots of powerful themes in the movies that translate to everyone, whether you're a baseball fan or an artist or a parent or a child. But one of the aspects that is told through the film, through Rickey's life, and is which by all of the performances in this movie are exceptional. The kids are fantastic. Right off the bat, I was just so impressed with them. But the characters who are played by the kids are then played by adult actors as the story progresses. So while Dennis Quaid and Joelle Carter portray Rickey's parents through the entire story, the kids grow into adults and are played by different actors. but the storytelling is so congruent in both the world and the relationships on screen amongst the characters. So Jeff, I'd love to know a bit about like what goes on behind the scenes, like in terms of casting, or, you know, what do you work on behind the scenes that translates to those relationships that we see on screen?
Well, again, I can tell you that I researched this movie to death. I wanted to win. You can never be perfect, but you can sure get close if you're trying to win a war. And I felt the war was, you know, winning by getting a good movie made about something instead of all the other Marvel movies that are being made. I wanted to make something that was about humanity. And so I researched this to death. And what I came up with is that in movies like this, you got to be really careful. If you have a little boy for 50 pages of the movie that's 9 years old, the audience falls in love with that little boy and they want to follow that little boy. And then all of a sudden, that little boy's taken away from them and you give them a 17-year-old version of that little boy. And now they have to fall in love with him equally. So what I found was audiences get very upset. They're like, whoa, where's the little boy? And now they have this older boy and they get to follow him. And I had to find actors that made me, you know, compelled me to want to watch them and be around them and love them, you know, fall in love with them. And Colin Ford came in, the older Rickey, after I found little Rickey was a kid that we cast all over the whole world for that kid. And there were only two kids that I loved. And the first one was unavailable. And the second one, thank goodness, was available. And he turned out to be the best choice. He just had the innocence because the other kid was an actor and had a series. But Jesse Barry, that plays little Rickey, he never had done anything. And his dad was a director. So that's the only reason I took him, is because I asked his dad, will you get him in shape? Because he's so innocent. Don't take that away from him, but get him ready for set, you know? And he did. And Jesse was flawless. I mean, he was amazing. But when Colin Ford came in to read with Dennis, I brought three actors in, one from New York and one somewhere else, and then Colin. And right after Colin got done auditioning, we were all like in awe. And I had seen him in the movie We Bought a Zoo playing Matt Damon's son.
Oh, yeah.
And he captivated me in that performance. And Colin came in, he was such a pure kid, just a sweetheart, but he was nervous. And Dennis grabbed his shoulders and said, don't be nervous. And then Colin just jumped in and did this powerful scene with Dennis. And then Dennis grabbed him and shook him. And I cut the camera and Dennis looked over at me and said, I don't think we have to look anywhere else, do we? And we just knew Colin was the guy. But that was years ago, like 5 years ago. And Dennis and Colin both were cast and the financing fell through at that point and we got new financing. And Dennis said, I sure hope Colin gained weight because I was really nervous about him from that day I read with him. And I never knew that. He said he's supposed to be a power hitter like Rickey and have that power behind that bat. And Colin was very thin. Well, I said, I'll tell you what, Dennis, I'll go meet Colin and see. So we had lunch and he's bulked up like 25, 30, 40 more pounds. And I was like, Colin, what have you been doing? He goes, well, just by sheer accident, I've been working out since this movie because I wanted to make sure that I was ready. And just by sheer accident, I put on this weight in the last year. So he really fit the part after that.
Yeah, funny enough, we were just talking about it.
Yeah. And then casting all the other parts. I mean, Joelle Carter, that was easy. I was always a fan from Justified. And when she wanted to audition for me, I said, you don't have to audition, but she wanted to anyway. And I was blown out of my chair and just lucky to have her. She is the most underrated, amazing actress. And then Bonnie Bedelia was just incredible as grandma. You should see what she looks like without the grandma. It's a different
I didn't recognize her at first.
Yeah. And then one of the kids with Connie, she's one of my students, and she came to do the film. She's really a sweetheart. She's actually was 15 when she did the part, but she looks really young.
Yeah,
she can act young. And then the older boy was Mason that played the younger version of Rickey's brother, Robert. He was magic. I mean, he was phenomenal. And I cast him. I mean, this cast, Scott Glenn, everybody, Ray, Randy Houser plays Ray. Randy is just a gem, and his big heart comes out in this movie everywhere. I mean, people might think he's a great country singer, but what they don't know is he's an incredibly loving, sweet, moralistic, incredible man, and he just fit the part like a glove. But I have to tell you, I never like directors talking like I'm going to talk right now, but I'm going to be honest and just say it. I have never seen or been involved with a cast like this on a movie where everybody is so good that I get absorbed in the story. I just forget that they're acting. I think this is a real family. I mean, it's not a second you don't think they're a real family, right?
Right. And that's the thing is like one of my favorite parts is the transition from young Rickey to, jumping years ahead.
They look alike.
And how seamless it is. Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's
that made me feel good that it worked.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, there's so many movies and TV shows, like that's a, common thing that you see, I think even more so these days, but the way that it's done was very different and just very powerful and made me even more invested in the story, about halfway through when that happens. But obviously, Rickey, your story is what inspired all of these actors to have these incredible performances. And one of the really powerful themes in this movie, following your dreams, determination, and faith. But one that I'd love to dive into a bit here is the father-son relationship, or really the parent-child relationship, and how that dynamic is constantly challenged by so many things, but none less than like the generational differences that can challenge our connections. So one theme that is depicted so well in the film is not only how our parents lead and guide and nurture us and the impact that they have on their children, but how parents can also learn from their children at really every stage of life and in our ever evolving world. So Rickey, what has it been like reliving that relationship with your father and your family? And what do you hope that the audience takes away from that?
Well, I hope they take this away. My dad, to me, was the most incredible man I've ever met. And he was the most spiritual man I had ever met, too. And I got to see, because the Bible says in the last days, you will see so many false prophets. But I saw a man that his leadership was just untouchable. I saw a man that, like Dennis Quaid said this when I first met Dennis. He said, Rick, you were Isaac and your father was Abraham. And everybody knows most of the story about Abraham and Isaac. And my father gave me up to do what God called him to do. But not once did he not ever check on me every night. And that love, just checking on me every night. Yeah, he didn't get to ever see me play. No, he didn't. But he checked on me continuously. And that made me even love him more. Because the love that he gave me, Dennis portrayed it perfectly. And I did not even explain that to Dennis, but it was like it was just meant to be, that Dennis knew. It's like he knew and he felt it. And he felt the spirit come into him and act the way that my father acted. And I could not believe the way that he acted in the film, because it was just like my father. My father had love. I mean, just pure love.
Well, that's funny, Rick. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I was just going to bring one subject up. Dennis, this movie's so relatable to every father and son, which is what Dennis told me. And when he was on the set in that one scene, when he brings the son outside in the back, I don't want to ruin it, and he's like, he's going to discipline him. He fell apart, and I wasn't expecting that. I was forcing him to say a line at the end, and Dennis said, "Do I really have to say this line at the end of that scene? Why?" I said, "It took me 6 months to come up with that line. It ties everything together." And he does the scene that we're talking about, and he falls apart. And I went over and put my hand on his shoulder, and I said, "You okay?" And he said, "Yeah, did you get it?" And I said, "I wasn't expecting that." And I had tears in my eyes. I said, "What happened to you?" And he said, "I just saw my father and my relationship right here." And he goes, "Do you still need the darn line?" And I said, "No, no, it's way better than any line could ever
Yeah.
portray."
Oh, how amazing. That's not, yeah, sometimes something more powerful than anything we could write ends up
Yeah,
happening.
that happened to
Like that.
Dennis several times on the film. He had these moments where he would break down, and it just brought, that's what I think everybody's going to take away from this. Like,
Yeah.
what was great to me about the actor Marlon Brando is that he could pull 15 different guys into one person and have a piece of something that everybody could relate to. That's why he was so great. And I think this movie does that. I think that there's little pieces of all of us and all these characters and these families. And it also is filmed in the 60s and 70s era where we had times, we were better times, better moral times, better times for families, better people to get coming together. And that's what this movie, I think, hopefully is going to be able to, touch people in that way,
Well, we didn't really, we really didn't show in the movie that a lot of the things. I mean, I used to go door to door knocking on doors to get some food to eat because we had no food. And we didn't really portray that in the movie, but that happened. And um, and I still remember those days tremendously. But I had this father's love, and then when Dennis, I used to say this when I turned professional, and I hit my first ball over 500 feet. That's not normal. Okay, I will put it that way. And two things that I have to say about this film that combines to hitting a ball 500 feet is that I used to round second base as I'm trotting around the bases, and I'd just say, "God, are you showing off? Is that you showing off, God? Is that you showing off?" Well, I will tell you this much. Um, I believe that God showed off in this movie because it all starts with this director that has to do a performance. You have to have a leader. You really do. You have to have that leader. And that leader, I ask God still today, God, are you showing off with this film? Is this you showing off? So I combine those two stories together. And, you know, I do not know how it would be possible for this not to touch someone's heart. It would have to be a person that doesn't have a heart. And you might,
hopefully it'll give him one.
yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully that's exactly, I was just getting ready to say that right there. Jeff, hopefully it will give them a change in their life, that it will give them that heart. And finally, I just say these words. You know what? In this movie, God's showing off. I
Well,
just think
that's the show we're on, Ricky. It's unbelievable. Peace, love, and baseball. I think it says it all. I'd like to hear from you, my dear, what you feel like when you felt it. I know you liked the movie, but did you get emotional?
Absolutely. Yeah, because I think, I mean, this is going to lead straight into my next question for you, Ricky, but I think one of the things that is like one of my favorite moments was that moment between young Ricky and his father, where he tells his dad that he doesn't have to choose between his faith and his passion for baseball, and that the way that we share, our passion and our purpose and this greater power looks different through all of us. And I think that was like the biggest thing that made me emotional and really connect to it right off the bat, because a lot of times that does create friction and confrontation and a lack of understanding between people. But the relationship with you and your family and your just conviction in yourself, and that was, really something that had been put in you and given to you for a reason, is so powerful, whether that vehicle is baseball or whatever it is. So Ricky, as a kid into adulthood now, like, you have not been afraid to challenge just that sometimes living your truth does not look the same for everyone. And the story depicts you having this such strong conviction for what you truly felt that you were meant to do. And is that a big part of what you hope like young audiences will take away from the story?
Well, I hope they take this away, the story like this, because, you know, I kind of asked for this issue with my father, because I would go outside and I'd beat on a chair and start preaching sermons. I'm watching my father do it, so I just started doing it, and I
I
learned.
actually asked his sister. I asked his sister validation for that, and she said he would drag a stool up in the front of the house and sit there and preach to us at the age of 8. Wouldn't let us out of his sight, you know.
Yeah, but I'd fire him because I knew the Word of God back then. I knew the books of the Bible forward and backwards, because I studied God's Word. And my dad, I kind of brought it into his life that I was going to be a minister. It's just real simple. But at the same time, I'm out just belting home runs and everywhere. And so that's why when my father asked me, which one am I going to do? You know what? I actually did do it too, because when I did sign professionally, I did go on the buses and the airplane rides, and I'd stand up, and on Sundays, I'd let everybody have it. I would, I'd start firing bullets about how you're supposed to live your life. Some liked it, some didn't. One guy wrote a book about it, how I dominated and preached on Sundays and did all these things, and he wrote a book about it, but that's long gone. But I actually wind up doing both. Exactly.
The cool thing about this movie is the challenge was I wanted to make a mainstream movie. I didn't want to make a movie for people that go to church or people that don't go to church. I wanted to make a movie for everybody. And that is funny that he says that about he could choose both, because that's what this movie is. The movie, actually, what I wanted to make was about a family and the struggle they go through with this young boy who has this incredible talent and wants to utilize it, but his father wants him to do something else. And it doesn't matter if his father was a pastor or a baseball player or
Right.
a truck driver. It was universally, I wanted to make this hit people like Field of Dreams did, like a little boy with a dream. That was Rickey, you know. And will your dreams come true? Yes, if you believe in them, they will. And so movies like Field of Dreams, The Natural, movies like that inspired me. I wanted this to be a classic that stays around forever. And I hope I pulled it off based on what people are telling me. I kind of can only go off that. I'm very close to this movie. It's a child for me, and now we're birthing it out into the world. It's got to have to, you know, you send your child off and you go, okay, I can do nothing more now.
Well, it's just my humble opinion, but Jeff, my next question for you, I literally have written here that there have been some very iconic family films like Field of Dreams or For the Love of the Game and The Sandlot. But when I watched The Hill, it immediately felt like one of those films to me that I could see myself watching with my loved ones for years to come. And obviously, when you heard Rickey's story, did you just immediately know that it could be that kind of a film?
Yeah, I mean, I knew that it had to be crafted that way. You can make the mistake of there's hardly any baseball in the movie. Like Dennis said in his interview behind the scenes that you'll see sooner or later, he says the great thing about good sports movies are when they're not about the sport. And this is not about baseball. It's just something that was Rickey's dream. There's a tiny little Sandlot game in the movie and a little high school game, and then the end. Most of the movie is about this family and what they went through and their journey of how to get themselves back on track and come together. You know, if you ask me, what is the theme? What is your whole feeling about if you had one sentence to say what this movie is, it's about a little boy trying to find the love of his father and a family coming together in the end because he does the impossible. That's I feel the movie is. It's about a little boy trying to have his father love him and see him for who he is and believe in what he wants to believe in addition to what his father wants for him. That's what every kid wants.
Exactly. And that story is so much bigger than baseball.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, one of the other most important messages of Rickey's story is that success is not linear, and it doesn't always look like we thought it would. And artists like Jeff, along with athletes, I feel like have maybe a better overall understanding of that because of the, the natural ups and downs and the unexpected nature of that kind of career. But Rickey, how have you found passion and purpose beyond your playing days?
Well, in the beginning, I didn't even know what I was going to do. When I slid into second base, people don't know this, but when I slid into second base as a professional, I couldn't walk off the field. I had no legs because I was basically paralyzed. My grandmother and my great grandmother were in wheelchairs at age, I think it was 38 and 42.
Oh.
And I had the same disease they had, except the fortunate thing for me was the time has changed. I did have a immediate surgery after it for my spine, but I had no disc. I was born with no disc, just like them. And they thought it was arthritis back then in the 40s. They didn't know that they had no disc. And saying that, I didn't know what I was going to do when I moved forward at all. I had no earthly idea. In fact, I was mad at God because he took away my love. I thought he did, but then he gave me the answer, and this is the way it is. I know it for a fact. He gave me the answer when this movie started for its birth. He gave me the answer of why it was supposed to happen. I was just not even an actor in the movie. I was just the man he chose to put this movie out, and that's what I can say.
Well, he also has an unbelievable ability to hit anything with high hand-eye coordination. He can hit a golf ball just like he hit the baseball, and he's like a scratch golfer and teaches golf. I mean, he's a phenomenal golfer. Although I've never actually seen him play, I make fun of him that he chases a little white ball around. Wow, what a job! But between that and some of the little league he's taught and stuff, I mean, that's what he's found now. I mean, he loves golf, so I can never find him. He's always on the golf course.
Well, the thing is, what you didn't know is my last surgery that I had was a very successful surgery by a German doctor that pulled this 13-hour surgery off, and he put 9 screws in my spine, 6 cages, and a rod between 12 and 14 inches long, and it gave me life again. And before that, I didn't really care, and but it gave me great life again. And he's right. I don't mean to brag about it, but I can do anything with the ball. I can today. I just can't. I don't know why, but like even Tony Romo is one of my dearest friends, and he's a great golfer, but I'll play with him all day long.
I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry I got this little cockiness in me when it comes down to sports. It's just that either you have it or you don't.
Yeah, absolutely.
To take it to a higher level. Well, I was born with it. God gave it to me without a doubt. Totally gave me this. He didn't, and he like it says in the Bible, it says faith without works is dead. I can have all the faith in the world to be a great ball player, but if I don't have that work, it doesn't work. It doesn't count. It's not there. And so I look at that. Faith without works is dead, and I use that all the time because it is true. If you don't have the patience, enough of the faith, and then give it the work, you're going nowhere.
That's a very, very powerful thing. And it's so powerful to hear from you, not even past your story. So I'm excited that, listeners will be able to see the movie, but also hear you speak to what you've been doing since and how you've kept like something that is clearly such a purpose that was given to you alive, because I think that's something that everyone can relate to. And you say cockiness, but honestly, like, you have to have that belief in yourself when you've been given something that is so obviously a gift, to, take ownership of it and share it. So I think that's, I see it as a confidence that just adds to the world that you're in, and is the way that you're, figuring to use it in any way that you can. And this movie is a really cool way that that's getting shared on such a large scale.
What I wanted to leave you with, Kelsey, is it's very hard these days to get through all the stuff out there. It's just so much. There's a sea of insanity, and all I care about is that people give this movie a shot and they go watch it and they come out of it and they get. I've experienced amazing things with people watching this film. I touched an old man's heart who came up to me at a test screening we had. And he touched my arm and he said, "I haven't seen a movie this good since Field of Dreams, son. You touched me." And he had tears in his eyes. And he's like about 80 years old. And I said, "That's all that matters to me, sir, is that I did that to you." And I just hope that through all the muck and the stuff out there, all the confusion, that people go to the theater and see it and tell, like Rickey said, tell people about it, because it's just one of those movies that you watch and you just smile the whole time. I mean, when I talk about tears, as you know, and you can validate, they're tears of joy or just emotion over this kid and what he does and what he goes through, right?
Right. And it's something, baseball is the vehicle that tells the story, but it is something that every single person, like, even like when you were speaking about Marlon Brando and all these different characters, like, everyone will see themselves somewhere in this movie, and the people that they're closest to. So Jeff, when and where can we see The Hill?
The Hill is playing all across the country in just about every theater in every state starting August 25th. I think you can buy tickets online in the next couple of weeks, but it will be out there everywhere. The posters are in theaters right now. When you walk in the box is there, and the trailer is playing in front of Sound of Freedom. You'll see the trailer, and it's also playing in front of. I heard Barbie's got it in a couple of theaters, and I just we have a pretty decent sized release. We're not a Marvel movie, but we're getting up there, and if people go, it becomes another Sound of Freedom issue where people are, packing the theaters. I mean, the good news is people are going to theaters these days. People want to get out of the house. And, this is a movie that you can go take everybody to. You can just call everybody up and go. You can refer it to people. Like, so funny. I watched a movie the other night I really liked, but then somebody said, "Would you refer it to somebody?" And I said, "No."
Yeah.
No, I liked it, but it's not a movie I would refer, because I don't think it's everybody's cup of tea. This movie is everybody's cup of tea without being homogenized. It's not. I wanted to keep the edge to it, of the struggle of what Rickey really went through, and show the family in poverty, eating cornbread and milk. That's what Rickey's life was much more poor than the movie even portrays. And the fact that he did what he did through all that is miraculous to me. I mean, I was the same. I mean, like I said before, nobody was going to stop me. Every time I met somebody who didn't hire me, I always felt like, okay, well, that person never knew me, but there's 10,000 other people out there that don't know me, that I could walk in the door tomorrow and they've never seen me before, and I could touch them in some way where they want to hire me. So that's kind of,
I mean, after speaking with you two, it is of no surprise that you were able to collaborate, and especially once you found the right people to have around you, which is such a huge part of it, to make something that is no doubt so impactful. So Rickey, I mean, we've talked a lot about all the things that people are going to take away from this, but what is the biggest thing that you hope that folks take away from your story?
Well, this might sound a little too, I don't know what you're going to think about this, but I've always said that Jesus Christ is the executive producer of this film. I'm just a vessel that he picked on to use me. And by George, I've been used, because I've been beat up in my entire life. I mean, I've had so many surgeries you wouldn't even believe. I don't even want to bring them up, but I hope that people, when they walk out of that theater, they think about where are they in their life. It was not my movie. I don't own it. And it's just my story. And I hope when people walk out of that they immediately go tell somebody else, you know what, you need to see this film, because if you want to get under conviction, this is a good film to get under conviction with.
Yeah, that was beautifully said. And I completely agree that if nothing else, I mean, Jeff, you said it perfectly earlier. It's a movie for everyone. Like, you don't watch it and it doesn't matter where you are with your faith. You walk into it feeling like it has a message that you can be open to receiving. And that is so unique in itself.
Well, thanks. I mean, people can get a lot of more information at thehillmove.com. The hillmov.com is a site that they've created for the movie, and it's on Instagram now and everywhere. So what I found out, and I'm new at this, these kind of releases, what I found out is, like, right before the movie comes out is when all the press really starts hitting, because there's just so much going on, and I think that they've got it down to a science now. So you'll start seeing a lot more stuff, in your show and stuff. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And obviously we'll put all of the resources for the movie in the show notes, so it's super easy and accessible. But thank you both so much for taking the time out to talk about it today. And I got to go watch it all over again. I already saw it, but I'm going to be first in line at the theater August 25th. So thank you for your time. And it was honestly an honor to meet you. And thanks for being so open.
Thank you, La. It's an honor to meet you.
You can now buy tickets to see The Hill in theaters nationwide on August 25th. So check out the link in the show notes and get your tickets today. Make sure that you also hit the subscribe button if you're watching here on YouTube. We're at Kbird Tweets. You can follow at Kbird Tweets on Twitter so you don't miss anything. And of course, follow Peace, Love, and Baseball wherever you get your podcast. See you next week.